Okay, so I am going to do a new coffee today. I don't remember. Oh, yeah. So I wanted to do, before we did the midnight or whatever that was called, and I wanted to do a different dark roast. It's also purple. This one's just called the French roast. Normally, I am a big fan of French roasts. French coffee in general is pretty good. One of my favorite coffees is the Cafe Du Monde, which is like a dark French roast with chicory in it, or however you say that. If you ever go down, you can get it in orangish yellow tins just about anywhere. But if you ever go down to New Orleans, you need to go and get it fresh with some beignets, and it's absolutely amazing. One of the best coffee experiences I've ever had in my life. Definitely recommend that. All right. It smells amazing, this French roast. So, this is just Barismo still. Like 90% of the coffee I drink is whatever Aldi's has. Probably 99% of it is whatever Aldi's has. 90% is their Barismo brand, and then 9% is random seasonal stuff. And then like 1% is random things that my parents give me, or perhaps I'll go and get something specific at like Giant Eagle or another place sometime. So, small update with the work on the house. The Home Depot sent me an email, said that part of some of your stuff is ready for pickup, but then in the email, it showed the whole list of everything. So I thought it was going to be most of it, but it turns out it was only three things out of like the nine I need total. I talked with them and they said we won't have everything until the 4th, which is just good to know what the timeline is. I'm not worried or upset about that at all. I'm appreciative that they let me know when I can expect it all. So I don't actually need the stuff on the 4th until later because that's the finish paint. It's like gray finish paint that we're going to put down on the stairwell to the basement and the floors in the basement as well. So that's really the last thing we need. We can get started before then. Everything else should be in by the 31st. So I might get started with it then. Once I start painting the basement, we are going to need to do that kind of consistently. We're going to have to put a hold on the regular streams because I'm going to need to take down the temporary setup I have and move that all out of that room. I'm trying to think of the order of how I'm going to do it because the place I would move it out would be the rest of the basement, but I also kind of want to stream painting the rest of the basement. I'm going to have to do the rest of the basement in sections so I can have a section where I can set up the stuff and not get paint on it. And then once I've painted the floor on the rest of the basement, I can set up the streaming setup outside of the streaming room and point it inside. And then we're going to have a couple days where we do that. The interesting thing will be getting the finishing paint for the streaming room. But that can be last because I need to finish the floor first. And we're gonna prime the walls in there with the same primer we use on everything else. Then I need to find an appropriate black for the room itself. But I'm waiting to pick that until we go back on the 31st or the 4th because I need the online colors picker was terrible. Everything just looked bluish gray, regardless of how black it said it was. So I'm going to go back into the store itself and look at the little paint cards they have and then pick the appropriate black for the streaming room. I've also found out that like the staff there is incredibly unhelpful. Also, the selection is terrible. Okay, let's rant for a sec. Home Depot sucks. Now, I don't think Lowe's is any better, to be honest. I've always liked Home Depot better than Lowe's, and I feel like Lowe's has kind of always been the corporate black hole of hardware stores, but now Home Depot is becoming that as well. Apparently, there's been changes in leadership over the years. I was Googling to see if other people had similar negative experiences with Home Depot recently, if it was just all in my head and I was being like an entitled bitch or something like that. But I found a thread where it was actually Home Depot employees themselves on Reddit, of course it was on Reddit, talking about how the company has been going consistently downhill because the people that founded it retired and no longer are part of the company. And this is like the third leadership change in recent years. And apparently, the first people were awesome, which is why Home Depot was always the best large corporate size. It was a corporate hardware store that kind of felt like the mom and pop hardware store on the corner. You know, that's why I always liked going there back in the day. But after that, I did notice the change when like the new people took over, and of course this is all retrospective now that I know when these changes happened. But back then, it really just seemed like they were scaling up. You know, I would even back then I would tell people, yeah, go to Home Depot because most of the people that work there actually still kind of know what they're talking about. But now you go in and it's just as bad as Lowe's employees, where it's just like, bro, none of these people, not saying none of them, you know, there's always that one old guy that has a head that is as polished as a ceramic floor. But there's always, for the most part, there's, and he knows everything, of course. But generally, it's just a lot of people that are just there for a paycheck and don't care. And a lot of them are actually scared to give you any kind of advice. And I wonder if that's a corporate policy because I'm sure I can see that being a corporate policy because I was trying to talk to the paint person about paint one time. And it was obvious, two things were obvious. One, that they didn't really know much about paint, they just worked the paint desk most of the time. And the second thing was that they were like afraid to have a conversation with me. And I'm sure because there's like a policy where it's like, don't tell people anything because then people get mad and they're like, oh, this employee told me this, so I demand a refund because it wasn't right. I just wanted someone to bounce ideas off, but honestly, I have mixed feelings about like the whole AI server stuff because it's like I hate AI service, especially on phone calls. And I have no interest in ever using PayPal ever again because it was the worst customer service I've ever had. And we can do a whole other rant about that. But as far as like the Taco Bell, really bad too. I have a fucking Taco Bell gift card I've been trying to use since October, and I just gave up trying to get it figured out because no one at the Taco Bell actually knew how to fix it. And the fucking AI, I don't know if it was actually AI, but the computer console that you have to order from and stuff wasn't accepting it. It told me to do it on my phone, then it wasn't accepting it through my phone. And it's just, so that part really frustrating. But it's almost to the point where there's no difference between a lot of these human employees that they're hiring because they're just stupid as fuck and scared to say anything that could get them fired. It's like, bro, I just wanted someone to bounce ideas off of and like see if you actually knew anything about paint at all. Or maybe, like, I don't even care what your opinion is, just have a fucking opinion, you know? Jesus, it's like they are almost at these human employees are almost as programmed as the damn robots that they're afraid of replacing them. And then they wonder why they're so easily replaceable. It's because you're basically a flesh robot yourself. All right. Cheers.